How is it that there are people who are able to overcome and heal from depression while a lot of people stay stuck? Why is it that there are people who are able to live lives that are purpose driven and fulfilled while other people are hopeless, lost, and directionless? These are things that I've struggled with for years, and in this video, I'm going to be sharing 3 insights that helped transform my life. Hi, I'm Limo, and this is Thrive, where we cultivate our minds because as farmers of our thoughts, we create our lives. If you're living with depression, it can feel very much like you're alone, but you're not alone. But knowing that you're not alone doesn't necessarily make things any better. It doesn't make you feel any better necessarily. It can, but you're still going to have to deal with the fact that you have the feelings that you have. Perhaps you're not necessarily in a state of severe depression, but you are experiencing a period of crisis. And crisis is basically a really stressful period in your life where there are a lot of shifts happening. You're in a state where you're going through a lot of changes which are making you really uncomfortable and really stressed. This happens a lot to young people, young adults specifically, where there are so many expectations that we place on ourselves and that are placed upon us, and we can't always meet those expectations. And so you find that there is a period that comes where certain things begin to shift and begin to move, and these shifts that happen can be really stress inducing. I was reading a paper, and in this paper it was talking about how there's basically 4 phases that a lot of young people go through, and what you often find is a lot of people get stuck in a phase where they're locked in. And locked in, according to this paper, is that stage where the expectations that have been placed on you, the expectations that you've placed on yourself based on society or whatever, you begin to realize that you don't necessarily want to live up to those expectations, and you have your own interest and your own desires that you perhaps want to explore. Or maybe you don't even know what you want to explore, but all you know is the path that you're on is not the path that you want to be on. And so this can be very stress inducing. And the result of that is, well, there are multiple results that can come out of that, but you will often find that a lot of people will convince themselves to stay on the path one way or another, despite the fact that this path that they are on is not one that brings them fulfillment. And there are many reasons behind which that decision is made. But what I want to talk about is, how do you get out of that cycle, and what steps do you go through to go from there to a place where you're on a path that is actually fulfilling to you and actually brings you joy. But before we can get into that, I must state that I'm not a medical professional, and everything I share here is not a treatment plan, nor is it medical advice. I am simply sharing the insights that helped me overcome my difficulties with the hope that it will help you the same way. Now, your whole life, you've been told in one way, shape, or form who you should be. And for some people, who we've been told to be is an identity that we have adopted, even though it is not true to who we really are. And this is where it can cause a lot of friction within ourselves. And some people confront this friction and then others do not. So the first thing you're going to have to contend with is the question, do you know who you are, or are you living someone else's expectations of who you should be? This one is going to be quite difficult because your whole life you have been taught and told who to be. And that learning is deeply ingrained in you, some more than others, because we grew up in different families, different environments, different societies. But the lessons that we learned about who we should be, they at this point are deeply ingrained in who we are. Understand that however old you are right now, you've had this many years of experience of becoming the person that you are at this moment as you listen to this. And so what you're going to have to start exploring is, outside of the external influences that have been put on you, the external expectations that have been placed on you, who are you? Outside of the influence that has been put on you on who you should be, who are you? You're going to have to start to explore that. In asking that question of who you are really going into a period where you're going to be asking yourself some deep questions, and you're going to be exploring. And a very important thing that needs to happen in this period is that whatever answers come up, you have no judgment about it. And when I say deep questions, I mean deep questions around things like the interests that you have. Are they truly your interests? The things that you have pursued, have you pursued them because you truly wanted to do them, or have you pursued them because you were taught or told, or pushed or forced to do them, right? We come from different backgrounds, and so the answer is obviously going to be very personal to who you are. And a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about are very personal to who you are. But what's important here is for you to, without judgment and without crucifying yourself, without being upset at yourself in any way, shape, or form, is to ask yourself these deep questions around: what is it that I like? What is it that I'm interested in? What is it that I want to do with my life? Where is it that I want my life to go? And also to explore things, try things out without any prejudgments on, no, I'm this type of person, so I cannot do this. No, give it a shot. If you have any inkling of an interest in whatever it is, give it a shot, give it a try. The important thing in this period is for you to understand that you're going through a period where you're unlearning all of the societal expectations that have been placed on you, but also all of the expectations that you have placed on yourself that are no longer true to who you are. So you're unlearning all of that, and you're relearning your personal truths. You're relearning what it is that truly resonates with who you are at your core. So really, what you're going into is a period where you're learning, who was I, or who am I, outside of all of the external influences and all of the external expectations that have been placed on me. Who am I outside of all of the labels that I placed on myself based on this thing that was a part of my life for however long it was a part of your life. So you're going through a period where you're going to be redefining and rediscovering yourself. So that first stage, or that first step that you need to go through, is a period where you learn yourself. And I particularly use the word learn because it is really a discovery. It is something that you're, just as you go to school and you learn certain things, you're learning yourself. And that is why I say that judgment and you putting yourself down, that needs to go out the window in this period, because you are discovering, who is it that I truly am. Now, as you go through this period where you're relearning yourself and rediscovering yourself, the next thing you're going to face that is really going to challenge you is, can you embrace all parts of who you are, even the parts you don't like? One of the most difficult things that you're going to have to deal with is the things that you're ashamed about. And even shame in itself is something that needs to be unpacked, because you have been taught, this is another learned behavior that you've been taught, and we unfortunately grow up in families and societies and environments whereby we are shamed for certain things. And the thing about shame is, the stronger it is, the less likely you are to confront the issue, because you will always be hiding away from it, running away from it in one way, shape, or form. And so it becomes very important for you to learn to love all parts of yourself, even the parts that you do not like. And by this, I am talking about shadow work. Shadow work is basically that thing where you are willing to explore the things that you don't like about yourself and dig deeper into them. But before you can even consider digging deeper into them, you need to accept them. There are certain things you won't like about yourself. There are certain things that other people won't like about you, but these all form part of who you are. Even if you don't like something about yourself, it forms part of who you are, and it deserves love just as much as the things that you like about yourself. And when I say it deserves love, I really mean learn to love that part of yourself as well. Learn to love the thing you do not like about yourself. Because if you have negativity towards it, and that's all you have, instead of compassion and grace towards it, and by it I mean those parts of yourself that you do not like, what you'll find is it becomes incredibly difficult to deal with them, because without first accepting them and accepting them with grace, you're less likely to confront them. You're less likely to deal with them. Because even in dealing with them, you're going to deal with them the wrong way. You're going to deal with them with a negative approach. And that is not what you need. You need to approach yourself with grace. You need to approach yourself with compassion. And part of that compassion that you need to show towards yourself is showing love to the things you hate about yourself. Now, I am not saying that you should continue to enable yourself to continue with these behaviors, but I'm saying unless you embrace them first and accept them with grace and with compassion, you're not going to be able to deal with them effectively. Because what you will find is if you do not deal with them with grace and compassion and love, you're going to be dealing with them in a shameful way. And that is going to be in a suppressive way as well. And so what happens is, as you're dealing with this in that suppressive way, you're actually dealing with yourself in that suppressive way. And so you're becoming an enemy to yourself. When somebody is going through a tough time, and I'm talking to somebody external from you, we are very capable of showing people grace and doing our best to figure. I'm not saying we don't get strict with them sometimes, and I'm not saying you're not going to get strict with yourself, but we accept that that person is the way that they are. We accept that this is a challenge that they're facing, and we try and figure out ways that we can help them. But the first thing that we do is accept that, no, this person has such and such a problem. This person has such and such an issue. And it is from there that lovingly we are able to help that person. And just as much as we're able to do that for other people, we deserve that grace and that compassion. And so it's very important that as you're learning and discovering yourself, as you're discovering things that you do not like about yourself, as you're discovering things that you actually hate and abhor about yourself, learn to love those parts of yourself as well. See, all of this is pointing to something that is at the core of you coming out of this crisis a better person, of you coming out of depression or anxiety a better person. And that is you being able to be authentically yourself, to be your authentic true self. And you cannot be your true self if you're shying away and putting down the parts of you that you do not like, because those parts are as much a part of you as the parts that you do like, as the parts that other people like. And so it's a very important step for you to go through, where you embrace yourself and love yourself and be yourself. That is the next step. So first you learn yourself, next you be yourself. So in other words, all of those parts that you don't like as well, be that, because that's what you are, that's who you are. And suppressing it and shying away from it is not going to help you. It's not going to get rid of it. And it's also not going to help you because you're not being your true self. So it becomes very important. It's very important for you to learn to be yourself and be those things that you do not like as well. Be those things that you look down upon as well within yourself, because unfortunately or fortunately, they are part of who you are and you cannot do anything about it. But it's not all doom and gloom. The fact that I'm saying you can't do anything about it, I'm saying right now you cannot do anything about it, because that's who you are right now. Everything I love and don't love about myself right now, that's who I am. And there's nothing I can do about that. The things that I hate about myself right now, that's who I am, and there's nothing I can do about it. That's the mentality you need to get to. And therefore, it will move from that to, actually, I don't hate that about myself. That's actually a part of me that deserves to be loved. That's a part of me that I need to show love and compassion and grace. And it is from there that we're then able to move on from this step and ask ourselves, how can I grow in a way that is true to who I am? Because remember, I didn't say that those parts you don't like about yourself, for example, that you're gonna enable them and keep them going because, oh no, I love myself the way that I am. Yes, you love yourself the way that you are, but there's always something that you can do to become an even better version of you. This is what we mean by being a better version of yourself. But understand, you're being a better version of yourself. And so it becomes very important for you to first be yourself so that you can become a better version of yourself. And that better version is where, in this now third step, we start asking ourselves, how do I become this better version of myself in a way that is true and authentic to who I am? And this question of being true and authentic to who you are comes back to a lot of things. It comes back to, one, the exploration I was talking about. It comes back to those things that you discover that you do not like. Okay, there are certain things you want to work on, but it also speaks to looking at your life. What can you work on? What can you fix if it needs fixing? What can you mend if it needs mending? What can you build that needs building within yourself? What are you capable of building? What are you capable of working on right now? Because see, I don't know where your life is. Only you know where your life is. Even say a therapist or your parent or a pastor or a mentor, anybody else outside of you doesn't know where you are, and so won't know truly what can you work on. And it becomes important for you to then discover for yourself and figure out for yourself, what is it that I can work on? And that's what you start to get to work on. And in working on yourself, right, what you're going to get to is discovering personal and external boundaries, right? You're going to have to set some boundaries with yourself, and you're going to have to set boundaries with other people, and you're going to discover these for yourself. You're going to discover, what boundaries can I set? What boundaries am I still not confident enough to start setting yet? Because we obviously have different capabilities in our ability to set boundaries, and we come from different backgrounds, and so the boundaries we can set are very different. The circumstances you're in will determine for you. You are the only one who can determine, based on your circumstances, what boundaries can you set? What boundaries can you set for yourself and for the people in your life? And what this is going to lead to is having tough conversations. In this step is where you start having very difficult conversations, but also very true and authentic conversations. But again, these tough conversations are had with the same grace and the same compassion that you're learning rather to show yourself as you're being yourself, right? And so another thing that's going to come with this part of your life is there's going to have to be a lot of forgiveness and a lot of forgiving, right? You're going to forgive other people, you're going to ask for forgiveness, and there's also going to be a lot of accepting that this is just the reality of the way that things are. Because all of this is teaching you basically what we call an internal and external locus of control. It's teaching you to have an internal locus of control where you are learning to control the things that you can control. And one of the things that you can control is your ability to forgive and your ability to ask for forgiveness. But this is something you will learn to do, and something you will learn to do authentically as you continue to be yourself. There's another form of growth that happens, that needs to happen for you to find your way out of this moment or this period of crisis. But also you will remember that as you were learning yourself, you were exploring, and in that exploring, you were figuring out that there are certain things that you're interested in and certain things that perhaps you're not so interested in. And so another part of this growth is you trying things out, giving them a shot, seeing if you're into them, if they really are for you, and sticking to them if you want to or not. Being okay with letting go of things, being okay with letting go of people even. Because what's going to happen, and I will let you know that a lot of changes are going to be happening in this growth period that you go through, and those changes will include certain people not being a part of your life any longer. That's okay. That's okay, because this period is a period where you're learning to invest in yourself, and as you're investing in yourself, certain things are going to grow inside of you. Certain things are going to develop inside of you. And as those things develop, as I said, it's a rediscovery process, the relearning process. As you're learning, you will start to learn that certain relationships maybe you don't want to keep sustaining. Certain habits you don't want to continue with. And you want to try these new habits. You want to try these new try relationships with these types of people, right? All of this is you doing the necessary work to grow into the person that you truly, truly are meant to be. Now, that third step is simply grow yourself. So we have learn yourself, we have be yourself, we have grow yourself. And these are the three steps that really transformed my life. But it would be disingenuous of me to just leave it there. There's something else I need to talk to you about. This part is sort of a warning, but also just a reality check for you, right? This stuff that I'm talking about, this journey that I'm discussing, I've made it very simple here and said it's learn yourself, be yourself, grow yourself, but it's not simple at all. Let me rather say it's not easy. Much as I've made it simple, much as I've simplified it into learn yourself, be yourself, grow yourself, it's not easy. It's simplified, yes, but it's not easy. What you're going to find and what you're going to discover is that getting out of a crisis, getting out of depression, getting out of anxiety, getting out of all of these challenges that you're facing is not a linear process. It's not linear. And in fact, sometimes things do get worse. And when I say worse, I mean really, really, really worse, right? Something I've liked saying recently is that sometimes progress feels like 10 steps back. Sometimes progress looks like 10 steps back. Sometimes growth feels like you're going backwards. But I want you to know this, even when you take 10 steps back, you're actually making progress. You're actually making progress, and what's very important for you not to do is to try and rush this. Don't rush this. Don't try and rush through this. And even with me giving you these warnings, I promise you, you're going to want to rush. You're going to want to fly through this because it sucks. Like, let's be real, let's be honest. It sucks being in that state. It sucks being in a moment of crisis. It sucks being depressed. It sucks battling with anxiety, debilitating anxiety. It all sucks. It really sucks. And so obviously you want to rush out of it. But I really want to stress that you shouldn't rush it, right? And when you take steps back, don't give up on yourself. Do not give up on yourself. Understand that this is part of the progress. This is part of the process. Understand something. And I said this earlier, like towards the beginning. You have had, however old you are, you've had this many years of experience at being yourself. So you're going up against somebody who's very experienced at what they do. You're very experienced and very good at what you do right now. And so any transformations, any changes that you try to bring into your life, you're going up a person who's very, very experienced. Going up against experience is not easy, but you can do it. And so in those times when it's dark, in those times when it feels like, ish, I know, I was told to trust the process, but this process, it's not processing, you know? In those times, that's when it's most important for you to turn to help. And when I say turn to help, I don't necessarily mean go for therapy, but have somebody or have something that you can turn to. One of the things that helped me out a lot in my journey was always having places to turn to. It wasn't always a person, but if it was a person, it was a therapeutic relationship that I had with a person. Not a therapist necessarily, although therapists were a huge part of that. I went for therapy, but what was important with therapy is that the therapist and I had a therapeutic relationship, because sometimes you can have a therapist. This is a totally different discussion and I'm sort of going on a tangent, but I'll make a whole video about this one. But sometimes you and your therapist don't have a therapeutic relationship, and so the therapy doesn't really help you out. It doesn't feel like it's helping you out, and it's not. So that's why I say it's important to have those therapeutic relationships. And if it's not a therapeutic relationship, have a resource. Have a place like this where you can find out from people who've walked that path that, hey, it does get difficult, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And you may be at the part of the tunnel where you're not even seeing the light, but trust me, there's a light. How do I know? Because I've been through it. I've been through and I've gotten out on the other side. Having such resources becomes very important. But the most important thing for you to do is, even in those moments where you're going to feel that, I'm giving up. And those moments will come. I remember there's a time when I was speaking to my therapist and I said to her, I'm good. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired. I'm tired. I really told her that straight up. And I said, I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. And she understood, because this is a lot of work. It's a long journey. It took me more than 2 years to go from my moment of crisis. And even with that, like, things got worse at some point for me, right? And I could have given up. There are many times I would have wanted to, but don't give up. Don't give up, because I promise you, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. The resources you need and the resources that will work for you are not necessarily the resources that work for me. But like I said, what I am doing here is I'm trying to share the insights that helped me get out, with the hope that they will do the same for you. And if it's not this resource that helps you out, find another. In fact, even with these resources, I encourage you to have as many resources as you can have that will help you get to where you really deserve to be. You may not even know where that place is. You may not even know or believe that it's possible to get there. But believe me, it is. Believe me, you can get there. And I plead with you, don't give up. Don't give up on yourself. I'm rooting for you. So I know I spent quite a bit talking about how challenging it is. It wasn't necessarily to make you hopeless or feel any sense of hopelessness around this, but it was because it's very important for you to have that truth, to know that truth that is going to be difficult. It really is going to be difficult, and you're gonna want to give up. And even in knowing that it's difficult, you're still gonna want to give up. But I want you to remember that some guy said that even in this moment when I've taken 10 steps back and it feels like I'm going backwards, there is a light, and I'll get to that light somehow, some way.
Now, if you found this video helpful, I really encourage you to subscribe, because I'm going to be posting more videos where I'm sharing more insights that, as I say, will hopefully help you, but maybe it's not for you necessarily. And so I'd encourage you to share this with somebody who you know who could benefit from hearing these things. But as I've spoken about so many challenges that you are likely to face, I think it would be great to point you to another video of mine that I made over a year ago, actually, when I was actually going through a lot of difficulties. But I encourage you to check out this video where I was speaking about the difficulties of self development and growing. And I think you'll find a lot of insights in that one too. Otherwise, thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.